I tend to want to, in that first meeting, really get a bit more of their background, want to know more about their own experience in research, but also their interests and particular areas that they want to focus on, first of all. So I think it's important that sort of know where they're coming from and what experience they've had in the past. Talk to them a lot about their reading, encouraging them to the sorts of things they might be looking at in their initial reading.
Right, well I think the first meeting is really important for the student and I to sort of get to know each other really. It's more to have a sense of where we're both coming from so that we can feel comfortable talking to each other. And I suppose to get to understand the context that the student's working in, because I'm not always familiar with those, to get a range of ideas about what they are interested in the broadest sense, and also the ways they like to work, because some students will like to start with a bigger approach and perhaps like to do a lot of reading and they can read very fast, where others perhaps might want to focus more finely earlier on, and it's getting a sense of what's going to help them to work most effectively really.
I like to find out a bit about the student's background, what setting they're working in, and what their focus for their project is, the background to that focus, why it interests them, where it's come from, and also where they are at the moment. Are they clear about where they're going to take their project? So we talk about that in quite some detail, so that they have a very clear plan of action where they need to go next with their project. Sometimes students are very clear, sometimes they're rather vague about what they need to do. They just have a title, haven't done very much reading or any reading at all, in which case they need to go away and refine the question. Something else that I think is very important is establishing a timeline. I like to get the students to look at the time ahead and to set themselves targets. And my advice is always to set achievable targets. And I think I also like to make sure that they are aware of when it is they need to be finishing the project prior to submission. And so that's what I like to establish during that first meeting.
I focus on them. So I get them to talk about themselves, their work, where they work, the way that they study, what are their strengths and weaknesses in studying, to get a sense of who they are. So that's my main focus that first time. And then I talk a little bit about the way that I work with students and the possibilities and of the ways in which we might work together, and we talk a little bit about that.
Most students, most people with whom I work have an idea of what they want to look at. That's what they're asked to do. And it will invariably, without exception, be too big. So in one sense it's about trying to get someone focused down. And that's quite a subtle process, I think, because when people come to you with a large idea or a large question or a large issue, I suppose I'd see my role as trying to help them reveal to themselves what they really care about, what they're really interested in. And I think usually, as I've implied, they don't really know that themselves. So it's trying to get there without leading, because if you lead, you will almost inevitably lead in the wrong direction. So it's that sort of prompting and knowing when to keep quiet, but when to say something. That's the so that's what I do first. Try and get a focus, and try and find ways of finding out what they really are interested in, what the problem is, what the itch is. Yeah.
Getting to know a bit about them, getting to know what the pressures on them are, getting some idea of the area that they are interested in. So it's a very kind of general open discussion to begin with, and to try and be very positive and reassuring, because usually at that stage, early stage, people are extremely nervous and worried about it, and it looks like a huge mountain to climb. So lots of reassurance that it's going to be fine.